what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna do anger cuts. We're gonna do Rich. We're gonna do Rich for the last video where he talks about like the whole thing. I don't think this is gonna be sad. He's talking about he's talking about the Venezuelan drug boats. Where's that whole thing about like where they double tap the drug boat? Because I also know that Rich was doing like a Twitter war with someone that was bitching about like that the US committed a war crime by double tapping the drug boats, and Rich was like, "Oh yeah, because it's no in war you stop when the enemy, you can tell when the enemy's wounded and you stop, and it's like, okay, time out, they're wounded." And he was like in this whole Twitter war thing, and I'm thinking this video may have been the culmination of that Twitter war.
War crime, war crime, war crime. Everybody's screaming war crime. It's the new hot word of 2025. But
Yeah.
Why is the term war crime trending on everything? Well, I'll tell you. Well, it all starts off with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, getting in a little bit of hot water because of a drug boat that we missile striked. Missile stroked? Missile struck? That we strike with a missile. Struck
He went to college for English, folks.
with a missile. Gosh dang it, English is hard. And that boat wasn't autonomous. Yes, it had drugs and maybe other things on there, but there was also 2 dudes on it. 2 drug trafficking dudes. And
Yep.
some people are calling the strike on that drug ship a war crime. Now, is this a real war crime, or is
Yeah.
this some stunt for people to get political points against the Trump administration? Well,
I will go with option D for 500, Alex.
I'll stick around and I'll tell you. But first, a word from this video's
Time.
sponsor. Fume! My favorite flavored air device. Flavored air is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping or smoking. And at the forefront of it all, Fume. Throw those vapes and cigarettes out the window and change your bad habits. No vapor, no nicotine, no
God,
batteries,
amp the
just
microphone on
flavor.
this one.
Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that delivers great taste without all the harmful chemicals. With its magnets inside it, you can twist it, click it, bop it,
Okay,
just
I
like the
gotta
good
drop
old
the
days.
volume
There's
down a
nothing
little
more
bit.
embarrassing
He
than a fidget spinner
cranked
on
the
a dog.
fucking
Get
volume
Fume.
on
And
his
they're sweet,
microphone
portable,
for
and
this
built to
ad read.
last.
Holy
It's
shit.
durable and easy to take everywhere, whether it's work, travel,
Like his
or
vol-
in the
his
house.
mic volume
My
was
go-to
like
flavor is
double the
mint
normal.
because it's tingly and makes me feel clean. Over 700,000 people have already made the switch to Fume as a part of their habit-changing
Okay,
journey. And
it's
if you're
not
ready to try it
missile
for yourself,
striked,
well,
it's not
now's
missile
the
stroked,
time.
it's
For a
missile
limited time, if
jerked.
you order a Journey
Okay,
Tech
get it
using my
right,
code
people. It's missile
AngryCaps,
jerked.
You'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Just click the link at tryfume.com/angrycops or scan the code to get yours today. Okay, let's start off with a little bit of backstory so we understand how we got to missiles getting sent at drug boats, okay? It starts off with 2 players, all right? Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, and Tren de Aragua, who I constantly call Tren de Agua because I'm a gringo. Now, I'm sure the first
Yes.
thing that you're thinking is, oh, I bet you this cartel gives a whole bunch of money to the president of Venezuela. And I'm sure that there is some of that there. But the relationship between the two is actually flipped. Maduro actually funds Tren de Aragua. I'm just going to say Aragua. Because Maduro funds them, allows them to cross borders, has them kill people across borders for him, and also has conducted political murders inside Venezuela against his opposition using Tren de Aragua.
So they're PMCs. Basically, the drug cartel is functioning as the Venezuelan president's PMC. There it is.
Tren de Aragua. So is Tren de Aragua again?
PMC is basically private military contractors. Kate Spider. It's basically private armies. Think mercenaries. But on a more grand militarized version.
Yes. Could it also loosely be kind of a Gestapo? Like a state-run and organized, funded secret police? Yes. Now, I'm sure you heard a lot about the Tren de Aragua gangs going through, I think it was Colorado, and I think in Texas as well.
What? I hadn't heard about this. Hang on. DHS identifies 527 suspected Trens de Agua. Yes, I'm going to do it too. Members arrest. in the North Side immigration raid. In all, federal authorities arrested more than 150 in the raid. Wow.
Well,
Okay.
overrunning apartment complexes, moving drugs, shooting people, violence, etc. All the stuff that goes with violent gangs. And I'm sure you heard all about that during the election. Trump was hitting on it a lot.
This gang is terrorizing law-abiding citizens, including taking over multiple apartment complexes. You have to take a look at this.
Violent gang coming into the United States. Moving drugs, creating a lot of violence. We need to respond to this, which I think everybody can say, regardless of political leaning, yes, violent gangs coming up from the southern border and overrunning people in apartment complexes is not a good thing. So,
unfortunately, Rich is wrong. Because there is a subset of people in the US that do not think that way. There is legitimately a subset of people that see absolutely nothing wrong and deliberately ignore the fact that they are a drug dealing cartel that are slaughtering thousands and running drugs in the United States and setting up literal drug dens in US apartment complexes. And there are people, US citizens, that literally go, nah, it'll be fine. And they're totally fine, and they're totally cool with it. It's... Ugh. Did I glitch? What, did I freeze for a second? Maybe I jerked my head around too fast, and it was too fast for my tracking.
the Trump administration's response is to now label them a terrorist organization, Tren Agua, terrorist organization.
Which does nothing. That literally, we saw that with HLC. Labeling someone as a terrorist organization does nothing. It's lip service. It is literally, it is nothing more than lip service. It means nothing in this day and age.
Which, if we learned anything from the Obama administration, means you get to do some extracurricular activities to them.
No, not really.
Drone strikes! And that's exactly what happened. On September 2nd,
it's the labeling as a terrorist doesn't actually do fuck all anymore. It's a pretty thing to say for the cameras. It does not, labeling as a terrorist organization doesn't mean they're going to be doing extracurricular activities. It was, they saw the opportunity, they know the focus was it's a drug boat, and that's it. The terrorist part of it, completely immaterial. Unfortunately.
Drone strikes! And that's exactly what happened. On September 2nd, the first of several drone strikes, or I'll just say missile strikes, because some of them could be other aircraft.
Revenue CC, legally it can open up military activities, but they never actually follow through on it. That's the ever-loving point. The ever-loving point is by declaring something as a terrorist organization, it's supposed to open up those options. It's just they never actually get utilized. And so the labeling of something as a terroristic group has become lip service. Well, with the Venezuela boats, it's the focus is bearing in mind, every time they talk about it, it's drug boats. It's cartel drug boats. They never say it's a terrorist drug boat. They never if they wanted to lean into the labeling it as a terrorist group, why are they not labeling it as a terrorist drug boat? They're saying it's a Venezuelan cartel drug boats. Right. But if they're labeled as terrorists, number one, why aren't they calling it terrorists? And number two, if they're labeling as terrorists, why aren't they facilitating massive bomb strikes or drone bombs or drone missile strikes on the cartels in Venezuela if they're really going to be categorizing them as a terrorist? That's what I mean. It's all well and good to call them a terrorist, and they are. I don't, bearing in mind, I'm not disagreeing with labeling them as a terrorist organization. I'm not disagreeing with that, okay? The problem I have is there have been so many instances where where groups have been labeled as quote unquote terrorist organizations, and nothing comes about it. Now, with the Venezuelan cartels, they're missile striking the boats, which, bravo. Bravo fucking vote. And, but I don't think it's this action, I don't feel like it's been happening because of the quote unquote terrorist designation. That's the point that I'm making. Like, are they missile striking these boats because they're a cartel running drugs to the U.S.? Absolutely. Bravo. Keep it going. Load up a few more of those missiles and maybe deep strike. But is it because they were labeled as a terrorist organization? I would say no. Because the terrorist organization label is just pretty.
They have been as long as they stay leave Venezuela. It falls under self-defense and row same as running a blockade.
There you go. There you go. It's like, is it militaristic? Yes. Is it the same? Like, basically they're running a blockade? Yes. Is it because they're quote unquote terrorists? No. And that's like, I'm belaboring this. It's stupid as hell. I realize that. Bear in mind, I realize I'm stuck on this, and it's just, it's potato shit. I'm fully appreciating it, but it's just I don't, yeah, exactly. It is a moot point. It's just, it bothers me that we have so many instances where it's like, okay, we're labeling this group as a terrorist group, like we were talking about the HLC video, and nothing fucking happens. That's the point. Is like, okay, you labeled them a terrorist organization, and it has no bearing on why you conducted these missile strikes on the drug buffs. And that's where it just fucking bothers me, because it's like, it's the bullshit lip service that just annoys the crap out of me. And I fully appreciate, I'm going around in circles on this. It is fucking stupid. I'm fully appreciative and cognitive of this. It's just the one thing that sticks with me that just annoys the crap out of me, because it feels like it's just another thing of the government says we're doing something and they don't. And that's why it just bothers the shit out of me.
Strikes, or I'll just say missile strikes, because some of them could be other aircraft, on fast-moving drug speedboats and semi-submersibles coming from Venezuela, with foreign intelligence stating that they were Tren de Aragua and headed for the United States, were intercepted and struck by U.S. munitions. Yay! Yeah! So on September 2nd, it literally pops off with the first strike. And most people are okay with that. Fine.
Yeah, Garrett, one of the drug boats was a semi-submersible. Not just a speedboat, but there were speedboats and there were semi-submersibles that they tried to use, and they got blowed up real good.
Pops off with the first strike. And most people are okay with that. Finally, the war on drugs being taken seriously by treating it like a real war. This is what happens when you poison our streets, kill our kids, and put our families and loved ones into crossfire. But things couldn't be that simple, could it? We couldn't just kill the bad guys that are intentionally killing people in our nation and undermining its security so that they can sell a bunch of dope and get more gun money and drug money and build their criminal enterprise bigger and bigger and bigger until we're like Mexico. Everybody knows guns and drugs go together. It's just science.
Yep.
Like lamb and tuna fish. About a week ago, it all came back to a head because somebody looked at the video footage of the first boat getting smacked with a whole bunch of freedom on September 2nd. And I don't know who the first person to interpret this video was in this manner, but their point of view has been echoed by every talking head on the news, whose goal with every time they get the spotlight is to just bash on the administration to where I just shut them out. You ever see politicians like that? It's every time something comes up, they just go, you see that? It's because of the other guy. And then it's on both sides. It's on both sides, and it's mind-numbing. Because this person's interpretation of the video was, there was a first strike on the ship, which stopped it. Ship caught on fire, didn't go down. The two people that were on the ship bailed, and then came back onto the ship, and then there was a second strike on the ship. And in their opinion, the people on the boat posed no threat. This entire incident is a war crime.
And every fucking person that's saying this, all the talking head news agencies have no fucking idea what that actually means. They don't actually know how quote unquote war operates. That's what this literally just boils down to. They've never experienced war. They don't understand or appreciate that if you leave your enemy alive, they will come back and hit you harder. They hit the boat didn't sink, they bailed out, came back, which means they could recover the drugs and they could recover the people. Which means the enemy has not been stopped. It's the fucking bleeding hearts that are just like, oh, we don't want anybody to die. It's like, I don't take pleasure in people losing their lives, but I also can look at this and appreciate these are people that want to kill us. Okay, these are people that want to bring poison into the country. These are people that will happily kill anybody that gets in their way. Their lives have then become forfeit when they do that. And if the first missile didn't stop him, well, first of all, fire the guy that shot that first missile. He's not doing his job properly. Hit him again. Yes. You stopped the threat. The boat didn't sink. The drugs and undoubtedly the weapons were still on board. So the threat was still present. You fire another fucking one and you stop the threat. Simple as that.
So that's where we're at right now. Guys on a ship moving drugs, good target, hit it. Missile strike, doesn't sink the ship. Guys get back on the ship that were blown off of it or jumped off of it when it was struck. Second strike happens, boom, everything's gone now. No more problem. And that's where everybody's upset. Now I'm sure you're wondering, AC, is it a war crime? Is it not? Allow me to educate you on a little bit of history and a little bit of common practice of the United States military when it comes to combat, combatants, and engaging a target. Now, to make things a little more easier, so we've got a good flow of our thoughts right here, right? I'm gonna bring up a reason why somebody would say that this is a war crime. And then I'm going to juxtapose it or compare it to a real life combat scenario. And then you can determine whether or not that still qualifies in your mind
he did this on Twitter.
As a war crime or as a justifiable use of force in a conflict. Isn't this fun? Let's learn.
Pinche pendejo.
The first strike. A lot of people are saying that after the first strike, those people no longer were a threat. Or that after the first strike, that's all that you get. You cannot continue to engage an enemy or target after that first strike.
That way.
Unless that target continues to show or provide a threat. Well, I kind of already talked about this on Twitter, because if you look at this video here, I've edited out the guts and gore from this combat footage here. You can see all of it on Pepperbox.
I've seen this on his Twitter.
Now there's one volley, one strike, which connects with the target. Wow, super cool. And then you'll see that it is immediately followed up with a secondary volley or secondary strike. So if we use the 1 to 2 strike rule, meaning you only get 1 strike per target, well then every helicopter pilot in Iraq and Afghanistan is gonna have to be brought up on war crimes. And because so many of those videos still exist on the internet, well, you are gonna have a busy trial schedule. And I use this video from aircraft firing on combatants to prove a point. People will say, well, there's no threat. There's no threat to other people. The targets in this video were combatants, okay? So therefore, you can engage them. Now, I don't have to be a soldier with a firearm standing face to face with a guy in an immediate threat for that aircraft to engage an enemy force. Because that enemy force in and of itself is a legitimate target. Are Tren de Aragua gang members legitimate targets in international waters while on boats, transporting, moving, engaging in their criminal enterprise, which we deemed a part of their terrorist organization? I say yes. You're engaging in the activity to further a terrorist organization. Valid target. Let's continue with the poses a threat narrative.
Yeah, right, and brother, that's exactly the overriding point, which I think the AC is probably going to get into, is by the logic of these bleeding heart morons, soldiers basically can fire one bullet And that's it. They fire one bullet. If they hit them in the shoulder, game over. Okay, you had one shot. They hit the shoulder. They're wounded. We don't consider them a threat anymore. What these people don't realize is that enemy combatants, even when wounded, are still a threat. But they don't see it that way because they don't understand how fucking combat works. These are armchair fucking quarterbacks that think, oh, that basically, like, they got their war education from fucking Hollywood, where the hero takes one shot, blasts the guy about 4 feet back, and one hit done. They, like, the Hollywood hero that is the expert of the one-hit kill. And they don't realize that in real fucking life, human beings can take a number of rounds to the body and still keep going and still pose a threat. Even if they hit the ground, even if they get hit with a firearm and they hit the ground, they are still not done. They can get up and return fire. Even if they've been hit like 5, 6 fucking times, they can still get up and then keep shooting. That's what they don't fucking get because they learned about war from fucking Hollywood and they don't know what real life is actually like. And these are the same people that are going, oh, you hit them with the missile. They bailed out. The boat is smoking. It's game over. They're no longer a threat. And they don't actually understand. The boat can be repaired. They can have a secondary boat come and pick them up, load everything up, including drugs and weapons, and continue on. No, the threat is still in existence. Until the threat has been wiped off the face of the planet, it is still a threat. That's how this works.
You see all these videos? Drones, Ukraine, Russia, dropping ordnance or intentionally ramming the drone laden with explosives into individuals. If you've seen one, I'm sure you've seen many where there are troops, whether Ukrainian, I've seen mainly Russian, that just give up, throw down their rifle, and start praying. And they're still engaged. How? Is that not a war crime? They're no longer a threat, says so many people. One of the things that make up why it's a war crime is that they're no longer a threat. Just because you are not a threat, an imminent threat to an individual directly in front of you, does not mean that you're not part of a larger organization which, especially during a wartime environment like Russia and Ukraine, would still make those enemy combatants a legitimate target. Just because a weapon's over there, or I'm not near a person near the weapon that's a threat, does not mean you're not allowed to engage them. Once again, let's think of aircraft. Let's think of drones. Does anybody remember the 2 Russian soldiers that were like in a bombed out building and one of them's getting a from the other one and the one drone just comes over and, you know, with a grenade? A war crime? Maybe a sex crime.
Oh, for God's sake, AC.
Recap those 2 things. Not a war crime when a helicopter engages combatants 2 times or 3 times, wounded or not, still enemy combatants, and the non-threatening troops that aren't around anybody and pose no legitimate threat to anyone at the moment, but are still enemy combatants. Another train of thought that comes out about this being a war crime is that they're wounded. They jumped or fell or were blown off of the ship from the first strike, and they're wounded. So therefore, you cannot engage someone that's wounded. I don't know who you talk to, but to quote Nicholas, the fat electrician, suddenly everyone on X is a law of warfare expert, and the new consensus is, if you get injured in any way, it's basically like grabbing a superstar in Mario. You're now invincible, and it's a war crime to stop you. Even in the United States, being wounded does not mean that you're not a threat, or that somebody can't shoot you, and I'll give you an example, don't lose your minds. If somebody comes after me in my home, it's a burglary, and I shoot them with my pistol, bang, once, and they get up, they could still be a threat, especially if I'm saying stay on the ground, and they decide to get back up, I can shoot them again. They're already wounded, yes, but just because somebody's wounded doesn't mean a threat stops. In fact, a lot of times, troops overseas, including myself, were taught that during searches of people that could be dead, or prisoners, be careful because they could have a suicide vest on, which they could clack off and then, well, you're going with them. How many Medal of Honor recipients do we have that were shot and then continued the fight? Maybe the only reason that all of those Medal of Honor recipients lived was because they were wounded. And the other military personnel were like, we can't shoot him, he's wounded, even though he's killing all of us. Oh God!
it all boils down to on this is the people that are pissing and bitching and moaning about this being a war crime can't accept the fact that war is not pretty. That's what it boils down to. These are people that have never experienced hardship, that have never, damn sure have never experienced war, and it basically their fifis can't accept the fact that war is ugly as fuck. War is one of the ugliest things that a human being will ever experience. And this is something they cannot grasp. They don't have a concept of it, and they don't want to accept it. Because they've been living in their pretty pampered lives. They've been living in their, couple $100,000 homes. They've been living in their, living with their perfect families. They've been, making $100,000 a year, driving fancy cars, eating fancy meals. And in their little fucking corporatized pea brains, they can't grasp that war, by definition, is ugly. It is incredibly ugly. People die. And they simply can't accept this because they want to seem like they are oh so righteous. That is literally what it boils down to. Is that war is hell, war is ugly, war is filthy. People will die, often in horrific ways, but the people not engaged back home have to go, oh, I don't like how that sounds. I don't want that to happen. So we're going to classify this as a war crime because, ew, icky war. No, don't do that. War's icky. I don't want to think about it. So I'm going to call it a war crime. And that's what that's literally what this is all boiling down to. A bunch of people that can't get it through their dumb fucking skulls that war is heinous, that heinous shit happens in wars, and that's simply what it is. There is no such thing as a pretty war. No matter how well organized your fighting forces, no matter how perfect your battle plans are, war is not clean and war is not pretty. And this is just something they can't accept. Because by doing so, they're essentially accepting reality, and they don't want to accept reality. They want to embrace their fantasy because they can sleep better at night by embracing their fantasy than accepting reality. And that's basically it. That's what all of this, oh, it's a war crime bullshit boils down to. They want to continue to live the fantasy instead of in reality.
These dang laws of international war! Wounded can mean something, but not if you're still a threat or still engaging in the activity that caused you to be a target and then had that lethal force or strike confirmed, allowed, whatever, signed off on. And if you're wondering if there's any sort of tactic, technique, or procedure, TTPs, that would go along with that, yes. Look at this.
Here we go.
Battle
Put
drill
this on
1.
Twitter.
React to a near ambush. Squad size element. Reacts to contact. Well, Team A is suppressing them. Team B comes up alongside of them, being perpendicular with Team A.
Yep.
They shift and lift fire. Team B goes, walks through that danger area and murks everybody. Why?
Yep.
Even if they're wounded? Because they could still be a threat. Now, sure, could you have detainee ops done in there and collect somebody? Yes. But if I just got fired at, I'm going to clear out the area to make sure I don't get shot at again, which means I'm going to kill everybody in this area. And then, just to double check that, Team A, whoop, goes right through. That's right, first, second, just to make sure everybody's dead.
Yep.
So, yes, we are taught that doesn't matter if it's just one volley of fire and team going through an area, even a second one, a second strike you could say, can go through and wipe out enemy combatants, wounded or not. Are they a
Yeah, because the basic principles of combat, this is taught in military, it's taught in police as well. You keep firing until the threat is eliminated, until there is no more threat. That is the basic principles of combat. There's a threat. I do not want that threat to exist anymore because it is a threat to me. You keep firing it until that threat is eliminated. Then you continue on mission. That's it. That's it. It's literally as simple as that. The basic principles of war.
Threat? Pow! Not anymore. Now, I will give it to the internet. It is a very interesting place where a lot of interesting people can look at a problem and try to solve it, or look at somebody's opinion and break it down in a multitude of ways. Which happened to me. Someone on my Twitter responded with my aircraft scenario.
Here we go.
And said, you know that there's a difference between the laws of armed conflict, LOAC, on ground, and when it comes to water or maritime LOAC. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Unfortunately, the laws, LOAC, laws of armed conflict, in the water are a little more brutal. Because, and I quote, maritime LOAC, law of armed conflict, states enemy merchant vehicles are liable to attack. So, boom to that merchant vessel. Oh, what was that? Well, they're a terrorist group, they deserve this. Why do that? Blah, 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 blah. Well, this is a part of a thing. Is it a merchant vehicle? That's right. You're shipping stuff. You're a merchant selling things. And you're labeled a terrorist network. And you're in international waters headed towards our shores in a merchant vessel, moving those illegal goods from your terrorist organization. Kazoom! You're toast. Even the international laws are on our side. Take that, Europe.
New information provides a clearer picture of the moments after this U.S. airstrike on a suspected drug smuggling boat off Venezuela in September. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon have faced bipartisan criticism for launching a follow-up missile strike, which reportedly killed 2 survivors of the initial attack. International law prohibits killing enemy combatants who no longer pose a threat.
This rises to the level of a war crime if it's true.
Shut up, dumbass. Because, of course, this is a war crime. So, Senator Tim Kaine wants the Venezuelan drug cartels to bring poison to U.S. shores along with weapons so they can kill Americans. He's literally taking the stance that killing Venezuelan drug traffickers that are bringing poison to the U.S. shores along with weapons and will kill countless numbers of people, including children, they should have special protection. And because they got double tapped to ensure that these drug peddlers, that these cartel members that want to kill Americans got killed first, according to Senator Tim Kaine, that's a war crime. Shut the fuck up, boomer. Go take your pill and go to bed. It's time for you to retire. Get the fuck out. You don't know what's happening. Go the fuck to bed, old man. It's time to wake up and face reality. War's not pretty, and it's people like Senator Tim Kaine that want to live in the fantasy world that war should be pretty, just like we see in the movies.
Once again, you gotta be specific with that pose a threat. Helicopters in Iraq and Afghanistan. Explosive drones in Ukraine and Russia. Nobody cares about that. Why? Because the entities did pose a threat, although it wasn't at that moment, because they were part of a designated group whose actions justified a strike of lethal force.
Or to put it much more simply, they posed an existential threat. These drug cartel members may not have posed an immediate threat, but they did pose an existential threat. Meaning that even if they were killed in that first strike, that means that they were still potentially a threat by either getting their boat fixed or having another boat come to pick them up, reloading, and then continuing on their way over. That's what's known as an existential threat, which is still a threat.
And I'll even go further in defining threat. If you're doing an action where lethal force is justified, and then, let's say an explosion happens, you go back to doing said action, the justification is still present for a lethal strike. I was stabbing a baby, then he shot me. So I stopped, and then I stabbed the baby again. Lethal force. I'm driving a drug ship as a part of a terrorist organization. We got struck. fell off the boat. I got back on so then I could move my drugs and just continue doing what I was doing. I get struck again. Yes. Lethal, justifiable action.
When people want to surrender, you don't kill them.
Nobody surrendered. Who surrendered? Who are they surrendering to? Did they put their hands up and yell, "I caramba, I surrender"? No, they went back to the actions that they were doing, which caused them to get struck in the first place. They didn't have the chance to surrender. That's called combat. Sometimes you kill the guy. Sometimes when you shoot somebody, it doesn't give them an opportunity to surrender. Rand Paul. Now, I like Rand Paul. I don't agree with him on everything, and this is one of the things that we disagree with. Like this.
If they're armed, show us that they're armed. If they're not armed, explain to us why we kill people who are not armed.
Well, I can give you an easy.
Do realize, Rand Paul, that when someone is on a boat, they may not, and especially in open waters, where there's not an imminent conflict, they may not actually be holding their armaments in their arms. It is entirely possible that their armaments could be stowed, which is a threat. Because typically when they're running drugs, they're running guns too.
By that logic, popping bin Laden was a war crime. He was unarmed at the time.
Yeah, Revan, I've heard that counter argument made. I forget who it was that made it. It might have been Rich himself that made it, or it could have been Nick that made it, or maybe even Ethan. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was one of the unsub boys made that. Yes, I'm guessing is where you pulled that from. But yeah, it's a boat. There are hidey holes. They could easily just, okay, I have my AK lying here underneath a box or underneath the keel, underneath the lip of the side of the ship where it can't easily be seen by a drone from fucking miles up. Just because they weren't sitting there holding them like you see in the movies doesn't mean that firepower is not within arm's reach of them. Again, these people are getting their idea of what war is from Hollywood. They're too stupid to realize that's not how reality works.
Easy explanation as to when and why we would do that. Soleimani, the Iranian general that we murked in Iraq with, what was that? Oh yeah, a missile strike. Even though he wasn't armed specifically, along with the numerous other people that we've drone struck in the past, was he a part of an organization that was committed to doing harm to American citizens and America as a country? Yes. Let me boil this down even more. Was Tren de Aragua part of an organization intent on doing harm to Americans and on American soil? Yes. Did Soleimani do something in the past? Yes. Did Aragua do it? Yes. Was it going to continue? Yes. Is Aragua going to continue? Yes. If you can explain to me how Merkin Soleimani, whatever his fucking name is not the exact same thing as taking out individuals in Tren de Aragua, then there's no way you can tell me that strike on the boat wasn't lawful. And if you say, well, no.
And every other enemy commander that the U.S. has ever engaged in with the military in the past. Again, you guys said it, fucking Osama. Yeah, the Iranian commander, Osama bin Laden, all the, Osama bin Laden's chief henchman that the U.S. has bombed into the next dimension, Hussein, all of his generals and lieutenants, like, all of them. No, none of them were probably engaged in combat when they got taken out. They were all hunkered down in their bunkers, and we just sent a smart bomb or a fucking missile straight up their ass and sent them to fucking Valhalla. And yes, I said Valhalla instead of whatever the Muslim thing is because I like Valhalla better. None of them were actively engaged in combat. But no one's saying fuck all about this being a war crime. No mention of this being a war crime. Why? Because it was part of an active army and everybody was actually on board with it 20 years ago. Now, the way the country has basically been pussified, everything's a fucking war crime, everybody wants to sing Kumbaya, and no one ever wants to get their fifis hurt. And so now every fucking thing is a war crime because people have lost the stomach for understanding how reality works.
actually both of them were unlawful, I'd be like, well, then we just disagree. Also, you could even make the argument that the individuals on the boat.
Okay, fine, fine. He didn't go to Valhalla, he went to Hades. They shoved the missile up his ass and sent him to Hades. Better? That worked a little bit better for you?
Are a part of the target, but the main target is the boat, to stop drugs from coming into the United States. And that the first strike was to sink the boat, but it just set it on fire, and they wanted to make sure that they did a good job and sink that boat to the bottom of the ocean. Well, just so happens that these guys went right back onto the target and then got struck because they were striking the boat to sink it. And that's that. Now, I'm not saying that that happened or that's gonna be an argument, but if we're trying to blow up a boat that's got drugs on it, you get off of it, and then you decide, I'm gonna get back on that thing they just tried to explode. That's kind of your own fault, not a war crime. Oh look, I'm sitting on a military target. Boom, oh shit, they just blew it up. It's still kind of around. I better go back to it and check it out. Boom, that death is my own fault. So here we are, people thinking that that was a war crime and are very upset. And people like me who compare it to things that are happening all around us, which nobody gives a shit about, and that we've done in the past, showing that, yeah, it's totally legal, it's not a war crime, and I think we're gonna be okay. Best way to support the channel is to get yourself a shirt! Jump out, boys! In black and white! Ooh! Jumping out of a police car in civilian attire and a vest, chasing down dope boys. Cheapest way to support the channel is tell me what you think. Is it a war crime? Am I wrong? Give me another example of how I could be wrong or how I might have misstated some facts. Ooh. Or tell me how I'm right in some way that I didn't think of. I do enjoy reading the comments. I'm gonna go on Pepperbox and talk about how I got in a tweet battle with a trans supply officer about combat and whether or not this was a war crime. Okay, see you next time, weirdos.
Desperate tweet thread, I think I saw. And just remember, chat, just remember there's one very important message to remember about all of this. It's never a war crime the first time.